I realized that very soon after the first AI model that this whole industry would completely go under. And so pretty quickly I realized that I don't want to end up in a place where the AI has replaced me first. To be honest, I got into the spa industry here in the UK primarily because there's a huge gap in what can be offered. We do massage. That's the main line of work that we're in. But we don't actually sell massage. We sell emotions. We sell an experience. Spas that charge 70, 75 pounds an hour, they sell just a massage. You come in, you get a massage, you come out. But you didn't come out of there feeling like you just came back from a holiday.
No Bullshit Talks is a podcast for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs. There's too much bullshit out there, especially when it comes to business. This podcast aims to highlight what's true and what's not in the world of entrepreneurship, bringing you honest and raw conversations about the roller coaster that is entrepreneurship. Each week, my guest will be a high-performing entrepreneur sharing the ups and downs of their journey and helping you prepare for the road ahead, while providing you with actionable insights and absolute gems of knowledge. Stay tuned as I introduce this week's guest. Maxim Martin is the owner of Seven Bali Spa, a Balinese spa in central London. It's proudly the most expensive spa in London. He is the former owner of a global copywriting and SEO agency and runs his own podcast called The Expert Hangout. I present to you this week's guest, Maxim Martin. So welcome, Max, to No Bullshit Talks.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So first of all, I think it'd be great for you to tell the audience a bit about who you are, what you do, why you're here, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so I run a Balinese spa here in the centre of London. We're soon turning 4 years old. And that's the main line of work that I'm in. So we're, of course, in the service industry. I specialize a lot in customer service, how to improve the experience of VVVIP guests. We have a Balinese theme, which is quite unique. There's only one other spa in all of London that has therapists from Bali. And yeah, that's about it. I also have my own podcast, so it's really cool to be on another one.
Yeah,
Thank you for having me.
I enjoy being a guest on other people's podcasts. It's a lot less work, so it's fun. But I want to talk to you about how you got into the spa industry, because it's not an easy industry to do. I feel like I work mainly with founders and entrepreneurs who are service-based businesses, which is so much easier to set up. And I'm obviously not like downgrading any service-based business. I'm a service-based business, but it's a lot easier to get up and running as a service than to have a physical spa. It's in central London. It's a lot. And it's kind of random as well, like spa industry. So tell me how you got into this and like why you're here in London creating a spa.
Yeah, of course. Actually, my background before I launched the first spa here in the UK, I had a portfolio of small websites. And we would write copywriting, blogs, different kind of articles for US sites. And I realized that very soon after the first AI model that this whole industry would completely go under. And so pretty quickly I realized that I don't want to end up in a place where the AI has replaced me first. So to be honest, though, I got into the spa industry here in the UK primarily because there's a huge gap in what I think can be offered. Most of massage places are either very low end, charging about 60, 70 pounds, or are outside of the city. So outside of the city, there are lots of wellness, very beautifully wellness-orientated places, such as Aquasana, such as lots of five-star hotels. Inside the city, that is, of course, not possible because you need a huge amount of space, and space is very, very expensive. So the concept was there are a lot of spas similar to what we are in Dubai, in different countries in Asia, in Japan, in Thailand, which are basically compressed to a city spa size. So we are a 200-meter space with 7 treatment rooms, and we don't have pools, we don't have saunas, we don't have like a hairdresser and a nail salon section. 95% of what we do is just massage. and we try to do that best. So the idea was that it exists outside of the city, but it doesn't exist inside the city. A lot of this is also, you can see it in Dubai especially, these city spas with a very high level of customer service. But London just never had anything like this. So it looked like a great niche to step into.
Wow, I mean, it's quite a big different jump. So you're saying that you had like copywriting businesses before. And it's really interesting you say about, AI taking your job, because that's a big fear that so many people have. And AI copywriting is ruining marketing, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's awful. And most people complain about it, and they say that it's really obvious, Google hates it and everything. So you wouldn't think it's a threat, but it clearly has been. And so many copywriters have been laid off because of it. So I understand the pivot. But you also said, like, you wanted to do it before AI got you, but you're also moving into an industry where COVID destroyed it kind of beforehand as well. Like hospitality, luxury things, like COVID made that really, really rocky as an industry. And so what were your thoughts about that? Because I feel like that's also another industry that blew up and we're in uncertain times now. So that must have been a difficult decision for you there.
Well, I actually ended up on the side of opportunity with COVID.
Okay.
Both me and my sister actually got the lease for my sister also runs a spa. She runs it in Switzerland. And the one I have here in London, we got the lease for it in 2020. And we got it for 15 years at what I assume is about a 35% discount to what the market was supposed to be. So it was also a business decision where I expected this not to be the last crisis ever. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of people were thinking we're never going to get out of it, which is funny to speak about now. But at that time, there was no certainty about how long it would last. But eventually, like every crisis, it ended. The market stabilized, but the 15-year lease was signed at the rate that we have signed it for. So I definitely benefited a lot from COVID. In fact, without it, I probably would not be able to get such a central location because we are, of course, very, very well positioned.
Yeah, you're like in the middle of Tottenham Court Road, essentially, right? Yeah. You're really close. In fact, like this perfect location for any of that sort of stuff. Just out of curiosity, for those people, because I know that there's been lots of people I know who are founders who are debating, do I get a bricks and mortar location? Myself included, we've had that conversation, right? Yeah. And I would love to have a physical space for my members club, but when I run the numbers, it's so difficult. Yeah. And I'm obviously leaning towards not doing it now, especially at first, until you establish yourself a lot more. What sort of numbers are we talking? You don't have to say exact numbers, but ballpark figures. If you want to have a space in the middle of central London, a physical space, and you've got a small space, what are we looking at? Like, what do people, not just what it costs, but what do people need to be bringing in or capital-wise before they even think about that?
Well, it definitely depends a lot on the concept. If you are doing a 5-star hotel level layout and design, then you're looking at least 50,000 for every 10 square meters.
Wow.
So if you have a 100 square meter unit, you probably are looking at somewhere around 300,000 and 4,000 just starting price, if you want it to be really, really high end. If you're doing something on the very other end of the spectrum, something a little bit more bare bones, then you could look at a 100 square meters unit to be furnished and designed for 200,000 or so. That is if you had the unit in shell and core, like we did. It saves at least 50 to 70,000 if you don't have it in shell and core, just because of all the piping and the concrete, and a lot of the initial design from the previous tenant can be reused as well. But it's definitely a very big upfront investment. The good thing that I really like about London is that the leases are long. We operated in other countries as well, in Bali, in Thailand. We were looking to open in Singapore as well. And leases there are between 11 months and 2 years.
Wow.
And then you need to renew. And the reason I think for it is because of the very, very high level of inflation those countries get. They can be just too unpredictable. So there's no way that they can solidify a set amount that you pay per year if inflation is between 10 and 30%. So they have to re-agree every couple of years, sometimes even less. The very good thing about London is that I got a 15-year lease and we do an indexing every 5 years. That's very valuable. That makes for a much more predictable business plan.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's great for someone like yourself who's really serious and in it for the long term. But obviously, now lots of people probably hearing that, probably thinking, oh my God, I'll never sign a lease, because 15 years is a long time to be saying, I'm definitely going to be in business. Because a lot of the bullshit that I call out, right, is all those quick hacks, those people thinking short term, right? And so many people are only looking at short term gains, and you can never have a physical building if you're only thinking short term gains. Like, what sort of financial, like, planning did you have to do to be able to even think this was a viable option?
Yeah, I think it also is a little bit linked with my previous job and previous background. I always thought that the best place to do business is online, because you don't need to pay rent. It's much more flexible. And doing that for about 4 years, I realized that like something is priced in, and this additional freedom is priced in with a huge amount of competition. You're competing, no matter what space you're in, you're competing against all of Asia and all of the US and huge firms with massive investments. Any kind of industry that you're in, you have competition on all levels, from individual to corporate. So the nice thing about a brick and mortar business is that you have a guy to your left and a guy to your right and a couple of other guys in the city. And that's the whole market. And that changes not over months, but over decades. For example, with copywriting, there was a point in about the second or third year where a lot of writers from Sri Lanka have created these courses on how to copyright. And they would do the same thing that I was doing, but for a third of the price.
Because they can afford to.
Yeah, absolutely. And the quality wasn't bad either. And I know a lot of people that did drop shipping when it was like the biggest way to get rich. And then they had to compete against all of China.
Yeah.
And their quants, which develop bots that do it instead of humans. And they do it at a massive scale, like hundreds of times bigger and faster than any person could. So that's the nice thing about getting a brick and mortar place. Yes, you have to commit to 10 years plus for it to really be a sustainable business plan. And you have to also be sure that what you're doing today, you won't be bored of and change your mind in the future.
Exactly, yeah.
But you have this limited box that you're working with. It's predictable. You can anticipate people moving in. You can react to it. You have the power to influence the whole market, even if you're small.
I want to go back to what you just said, though, about, your competitors. Because I get that online, and again, people would say the opposite, like that online it's so easy because you've got the whole world, to compete, to gain the interest of. But at the same time, you do have the whole world that you're competing against. Right? And like you said, if you are a service-based business and someone in another country can do it cheaper and just as good, then you're in trouble. So, but you said your competitors are basically only the person next door and surrounding areas. How does that work? Because I'm thinking your competitors are every spa in London, so to speak, right? So how, or not even just that, like in the country, like people go and they Google stuff and it's still a bit of online marketing is required. Who do you consider to be your competitors?
Yeah, I'm very glad you asked that question, because I can proudly say that I actually don't think we have any competitors in all of London. And we talked about this earlier, that every entrepreneur says how they're so unique that of course they have no competition whatsoever. But from a certain point of view, that definitely is the case with us. We do massage. That's the main line of work that we're in. But we don't actually sell massage. We sell emotions. We sell an experience. Spas that charge 70, 75 pounds an hour, they sell just a massage. You come in, you get a massage, you come out. Me and my partner have recently been to a spa because ours was booked out and we didn't get a spot at our own place. And they didn't have a reception, they didn't have Wi-Fi, they didn't have a shower, they didn't serve complimentary drinks or snacks. You entered this very narrow corridor where you had to go downstairs. After the treatment, they used oil, they just wiped it off with single-use tissues. The massage quality was excellent, but you didn't come out of there feeling like you just came back from a holiday. So it fixed my shoulder that was hurting, but it didn't give me that spa experience that people are chasing. And that doesn't exist in London apart from hotels. But people don't really want to go to hotels because they are priced very high. And given the fact that they're not working on customer retention, they're mainly tourists, they don't have too much attention to detail. So there is really nobody that is a city spa and does it to the same level as us. In, of course, a very biased opinion of the owner of the spa.
Yeah, but why do you think that is? Like, why aren't people doing that? Like you said, the hotels all do it, and when I think back to every massage I've ever had, I was starting to think, I don't think I've had a massage that isn't in a hotel other than at your spa now, obviously. So that's it. But I feel like I don't really know of any. You're right, and why is that then?
I think this is if I answer honestly, I think it's a very like industry specific answer. So it may be a little bit boring, but it has to do with staff turnaround. It doesn't make financial sense for people that work in beauty, including hairstylists or manicure and pedicure specialists, to really stick with the same workspace for a long time. Because let's say a hairdresser comes and gets £2,000 for 19 shifts a month. If they get 5 clients from the business and go to their homes to cut their hair, they will be able to generate half of that in 2 days. So the higher up you go in price, the less effort it is for an employee to take your business home. And no matter what kind of contracts you sign, where non-competes and other things, people are people, they will talk, they'll make great relationships with the people that work, especially like, I like to think I hire excellent people, and our clients connect with them. And every other business thinks the same. So that's a big issue. If you go very high in price and you can't afford to pay someone $100,000 a year to be a massage therapist, you just eventually see that people that work with you leave, and surprisingly, clients that were their clients stop coming to your spa. Of course, that is after you spent a huge amount on advertisement and on customer service and on like nobody comes to your business for free. You always spend money in it. So, but that's the owner's rant, of course. The reason that other spaces don't open at such a high level is staff turnaround.
Wow. So obviously the staff turnover is why lots of people don't have spas, but let me talk about pricing again, because you know, we've talked about how expensive it is and everything, and you know, I talk a lot about market positioning. You've deliberately placed yourself in the market to be the most expensive spa. And like that's why you're saying you've got no competitors. And we'll come back to that, because I obviously think that there's always someone's got a competitor, even in a different way. Like you might have
would love to hear you.
Well, you might have differentiated yourself very, very well, which is great. But I do believe that there was always someone who's a competitor of some kind that you need to look at. Because I think that if you totally disregard any competition, you could get complacent. And that's what I don't want people to do. So you might not have a direct competitor, but you'll have some sort of competitors which you need to look at. But I like the fact you've chosen to make yourself the most expensive. And I find it's an interesting strategy because, as I said, I work with lots of different types of founders, and lots of people are price sensitive, right? So you see a lot of people toying with the idea of trying to undercut their competitors because they want to show up the cheapest. That's a very obvious, easy buy, right? But then there's other people who do try to price themselves more because they want to feel more valuable. And obviously it's nicer if you're more expensive and they, you know, charge what you're worth and all this kind of stuff. But it's easier said than done, because you've got to back it up. If you're going to charge more than everyone else, you need to prove why you're better than everyone else. So I'd like to hear why you chose to do that, because that was a conscious effort. That was a conscious decision, right? To make yourself more expensive than everyone else. And how have you backed that up with like saying we're the most expensive spa in London or the UK, right? The UK?
So except for hotels.
Yes,
so
but not
taking hotels out of the equation, we are the most expensive spa in London. I haven't checked all of the UK, but
probably
I wouldn't be too surprised. I think when it comes to pricing, there are two concepts that pricing orbit around. The first one is that most businesses and most service providers underprice themselves at least by 10 to 30%. And there's a good reason for it. It's because if you price yourself too high, you can't really go back. So people and businesses tend to increase their prices much slower than what they actually could do. And it takes a little bit of bravery and a little bit of like boldness to do a big step and increase your price by 10-15% when you're ready for it. Some of the clients will chip away and others are not there yet. They will, of course, come with time. So definitely I am on the side of a hypothesis that you should price yourself fairly. And fairly means what the market is willing to pay. Of course, you said very correctly that you also need to back it up. So we don't spend too much time worrying about customer acquisition or marketing. We don't have a media representative, but we have 3 quality managers. And we really double down on making sure that, without exception, every single person gets an incredible experience. We have something, and actually I recommend that for any kind of service businesses. It's called a customer journey. You just go through every single interaction that a customer will have with you, starting from how do they find out about you, whether it's a Google ad or a banner, to the first word that they hear when you call them or when you text them back, all the way to the end when they leave. And if that typically has between 20 and 40 different steps, and you find the weakest link in every one of these, out of all of these steps, and every 3 months you do it again and try to improve it, try to improve it. So the first idea of pricing is definitely that I think most people don't price themselves correctly. They're being on the cautious side, and they don't go to what the market can actually pay. The second is, of course, to do with the price elasticity of demand, chapter 2 of any economics book. If you're in the luxury segment, you're typically a price inelastic product, meaning that if you increase your prices by 10%, your demand will fall by less than 10%. So that's why we are charging what we're charging, and the lack of competition helps a lot. If there was somebody that was doing half the job that we're doing, and I know I sound a little bit cocky when I say that, but it's a little bit of a surprise to me that nobody is doing this in London. Nobody's doing a wellness spa like we do. So yeah.
So going back to that again, because some people think that if no one's doing something, it must be because it's wrong, right? Lots of people have the people have different mindsets.
Yeah.
Some people say, oh, there's a gap, they definitely take advantage of that gap. If no one's doing it, then great. Other people go, there's a reason why no one's doing it, because it doesn't work. And how did you know that it wasn't that latter, and how did you know it was the first?
Well, I think we just know our client very well. This wouldn't work in any other city except for London.
Why is that?
London is very diverse. There are lots of high net worth individuals from very, very different parts of the world. At least 50% of our clientele comes from Dubai. So we're operating in London with London prices, but we're working on a segment that is, everyone are foreigners. We have a lot of Russians and Chinese and different people from the Emirates. We have US clients. That's the kind of segment we're working with. And they all meet in London. And if we were to open even in Manchester, big city, everything, it just would not work at all, because there's no demand for it. There's no market for it.
So actually, UK people wouldn't actually buy into this concept, or less likely to buy into this concept. It's actually, you're targeting foreigners who are just travelling through London.
Not necessarily travelling through London or living in London. Yeah, for sure. I think in the history of the company, out of the 15,000 customers that we had, maybe we had 10 that were British.
Wow.
It's hard to justify this level, this what we're doing to someone that is culturally around what UK feels.
Yeah.
Because there's always a question, why so much? And you go to the other spectrum, where in the Emirates, this pampering experience is part of everyday life. Or in Singapore, they say that if you have massage only 2 times a week, you had a rather unhealthy week. It should be minimum 3. Much easier to justify what we're doing.
Wow. So now I'm listening more about the differentiation. This is actually getting interesting, because again, like I said to you, people all well, I've said that people all say that they don't have competitors. People all say that they stand out, but people don't understand their audience properly. And this is now interesting. Your audience is not British, even though you're in London, which is so bizarre. So talk me through our customer acquisition, because like you said, you've managed to run a spa in central London, like at the most expensive cost, or price of the customers, and you've managed to fill it with people who are not even British, which is kind of wild. How have you acquired all your customers so far?
I wish I could give good insight here. This is definitely not my strong spot. Marketing and customer acquisition is not something we really double down in. We waited for about a year and a half until we were operationally profitable. Before that, we were losing money every month, and we held the bar with the level of service that we have. The only level of advertisement and customer acquisition that we're doing is Google Ads. We have a pretty good website, but it's boring, it's basic, but we do a good job, and we have referrals through word of mouth. People come back. It's also much easier to retain your current customer than to attract a new one. In fact, 80% of our revenue comes from 20% of our customer base.
Pareto's law again.
Yeah.
I love it when it comes up, because my whole life is Pareto's law.
Yes.
I love that. So, wow.
That's true.
So, do you know what? What you've just said, you said it's boring, but I'm actually so glad you said it, because I am such an old school person at the moment. I feel like so much of business is actually better done in an old school way. Because I feel like a lot of stuff now is all the bullshit that's coming up. There's a lot of hacks and tricks and stuff like that people are talking about. And some of the best ways I've seen businesses be profitable is from old school ways. Like you just said, show up and do a good job. Yeah. Like just show every single one of your customers that you're great at what you do. Those customers will tell other people. And that's word of mouth is still always the best form of marketing.
Definitely.
And you said Google Ads. Again, basic, but it does what it is. You can see positive R1. You can tweak it all the time to get exactly what you need to get done. But people are throwing their money at all these fancy campaigns and influencer marketing and all the vanity metrics of influencers. You don't know what brings in. You can't actually physically correlate it a lot of the time. And so actually I'm really glad to hear you say that.
In your experience, have you ever found that companies that 90% of their effort goes towards customer acquisition, have many of them managed to retain much of that success in customers? So
that's one of great question, because that's one of the things I'm noticing at the moment. So any business that comes to me talking about marketing, I do a bit of more marketing audit or consultation with them. One of the first places I say to cut spend is on customer acquisition, because everyone's obsessed with it. And I've talked to you about this before, but like retaining a new customer is 5 to 7 times easier than it is to gain new customers. But I believe it's the dopamine hit that people get from the winning new customers. And like, instead of just upscaling your current ones, like for example, even with the spa, like if someone comes in for a massage all the time, but then you could turn them into multiple massages or facials or whatever it is, like you could do that much easier, because they already know, like, and trust you. They are already your customer. But to go out and acquire someone that you've never even heard of, and they're like, who's this little spa in the middle of central London compared to all these fancy hotels? You have to convince them. And I don't get why people don't do this more. But you're right. Like, a lot of them are wasting far too much money on customer acquisition. And that's why it's music to my ears hearing you say that. And I think that my audience and everyone out there who's running a business need to really get it into their head that it's not all about social media. It's not all about all these fancy things like that. Sometimes the old school way of just doing good business is the best way to run a business. I think
another lens to view this through is not only the amount of money that you spend, but also unless you are Microsoft, your management team is usually between 1 and 5 people. Mm-hmm. And at most, a team of that size can focus on 2 to 3 projects at once, seriously focus on them. And if you're putting 50, 60, 70% of your effort to acquiring new customers, there's a scenario in which this is very important if you're new, if you launch a new product. But if you're doing that throughout the whole existence of the business, you're only leaving 40% of that free real estate in everybody's head to really do all the other things. And by all the other things, sometimes it's quality, sometimes it's attention to details, sometimes it's talking to your existing customers, not only when they come to the spa, but also figuring out a way to monitor has somebody been absent for 2 months? So for example, we have a system if somebody didn't show up that has visited us 3 times before for more than 2 months, we have a little system that flags it, and one of our quality managers gives them a call and says, well, is everything all right? Have you moved countries? Or was the last time you visited us not so satisfactory? This will bring a huge return on investment.
Wow.
But very similar to what you said, it's not as satisfying as seeing a 5x return on Google spend. It doesn't feel like you're moving forward as much. But if you are pragmatic and you look at raw numbers and what will sustain your business afloat the longest, it very often, not saying always because every different is very business, but it very often is something that people neglect.
Yeah, and again, it comes down to those vanity metrics, right? It's what people focus on, the numbers that makes them feel good, but not the numbers that actually moves a business forward. And so, again, it's so valuable hearing that. And I want to go back actually to what you said earlier about the first 18 months, because you said you bled money the first 18 months, right? And I want to focus on that at the moment because, again, a lot of the stories out there on social media, a lot of podcasts, they focus on the success. They focus on the rise to the top, and loads of people make out like it is just this steady rise to the top. But I think 99% of people, if they're being honest, their chart is like this, and it's like, it's all over the place.
In
and
circles.
It's just one big pile of spaghetti is what I like to see it like as. It's a mess. But those first 18 months, like you said, you put a large financial investment into it, so that's obviously difficult. But you said even losing money. What was going wrong in those first 18 months, and how did you get to being profitable?
Yeah, so when you first open any business, perhaps a quick disclaimer. Of course, not all journeys can afford to lose lose money for the first 18 months. So this was a part of the business plan. It was calculated, cold-hearted, risk tolerance decision where I expected this to go even longer if necessary. And things throughout the whole of this time looked like they were on the right trajectory. So if you're losing money for 1 or 2 months, there are different ways you can lose money. If you are consistently not improving the amount that you're losing, that's not good.
Yeah.
You do need to improve on a monthly or at least on a quarterly basis.
Yeah.
When I say that it's okay to lose money for a year and a half, that comes with an asterisk that you also have to know how to lose that money correctly. So what we've done is we have huge operational costs because we are not an online business. Rent, you pay from the 12th months. The first 12 months you have rent holidays, but after that it hits you. Business rate's the same. We do like our laundry in-house. So our electricity bill is like another 10% of rent. It's really high. And again, we could outsource it, but then the towels are not so soft and they may smell of oil. And for other reasons, in quality control in mind, we do it in-house. Every month, every therapist that we hired, and whenever we increased in size, we progressively did more revenue. And of course, in the beginning, marketing was a much bigger priority. We had not only Google Ads, but two of some very successful programs we ran was we put one of the people that worked with us on the street dressed as a traditional Balinese lady. I don't know what's the name of this costume, but it's very beautiful. It's this golden crown. It's huge. It's very, very it catches attention. And we gave out leaflets. And not what necessarily a luxury spa does. And instead of leaflets, they were like these black, very thick business cards. But we definitely tried to get her name out there. And the other thing is we gave all the hotels around us an invitation free of charge to come for their team to experience it, so that the concierges knew that we're around.
So they could recommend them. That's really good. I like that one.
Yes. So of course in the beginning we tried everything we can to bring customers, but slowly over time they started coming, and of course we're very central. So positioning helped a lot. I think another key element of any business, at least like in this and last decade, is Google reviews. If you are less than 4.7 on Google Maps, it's good to work on that. and it's not so difficult to work on it. Just ask happy customers to leave a review. Google actually prohibits you to bribe them with something. You're not supposed to like give a free coffee for a review, but you can do it. It's okay. They're not going to find out. And build that rating, because if you have over 100 reviews and your average is 4.9, that builds trust. So these things combined, and going back to your question, like how do we do it for the first 18 months? We lost 100 units of money and then 90 units of money. And then we looked back a year later, comparing month to month, because it's seasonal. So it's not correct to compare August with October, because everyone's away in August, and October they're here. And we see a 120% increase year to year. And that was year 0 to year 1 and year 1 to year 2. And now that we're year 3 to year 4, we're only about like 10-15% increase. So now it's a plateau.
Wow.
So looking at the numbers,
I'm impressed.
a very important aspect of becoming profitable is being good with numbers. I think that's a very, very key skill to have. And if you're not good with numbers, get someone around you who is good with numbers.
Yeah.
There are very different metrics to measure, like the rate at which the business grows.
Yeah.
But you gotta find yours, because if you're not looking and keeping up with trends and seasonalities and how much money you're making versus losing and so on, it can be very, very difficult to run a business profitably.
Well, I'm so glad you said that, because I wanted to touch on that when you were talking about it anyway, is the whole business plan thing. Because I recently had this discussion with someone, and I wrote an article for Entrepreneur magazine about, is the business plan still really dead? Because so many business influencers be like, just start is the kind of common, theme about it. And they say the business plan is just not needed. Like, a business plan is a waste of time. And I like the premise of just start from the like motivational, stop procrastinating kind of thing. But I also think it's taken completely the wrong way by the whole motivational guru kind of crowd that's on social media, because they skip the entire strategy and planning stage of the business. And it sounds like to me, you've said that 18 months was planned for to make a loss. In fact, you planned for more, which means that you probably performed better than you expected to, because you actually stopped losing money. But without that, you wouldn't have been able to do it. You probably would have lost a ton of money in the wrong way, because you'd just keep going, and you won't even know whether you're on track. Like you said also, and it probably worse, people might have lost money and then given up because they would have thought, oh, this is not working. But you were losing money, and we're like, great, we're going in the right direction.
Yes, we're losing less than last month.
Which is so crazy to think about it. You're like, we made a loss this month. This is great. And you're like, wait, what? But then you say, we're actually, we're making progress, and then we're on track to our targets. Without doing that business plan and without knowing those numbers, like you said, you would never have been able to be profitable. So I'd like to just hear from your perspective how important that was. What did you do? Like, did you do a corporate pitch deck formal business plan, or did you do something a bit simpler, which I think is what we're talking about? But what did that look like, and how important is it for the planning stage?
I think planning is a question of risk tolerance. If a person is on 20 or 30K a year in salary, they won't benefit too much from business plan. Then I definitely agree with stand up and do, like, if you want to, not that there's anything wrong with being on 20 or 30K, if we're talking about ambition and making it into 100K, then do something every day, doesn't matter what, gain that experience. You don't have a very big downside. But if you're working with a capital of maybe $1 million or $2 million and you're investing that, depending on what portion of your capital that is, then a business plan becomes more and more relevant. If you're investing close to 50% of your net worth into a project, it's a very good idea to sit down and think about it for a couple of weeks or months. So this was the case with me. It was, of course, a very, very big investment and a very, very big commitment. And not only have I invested what me and my family has, but also we took out lots of loans and things like that. So I think a business plan is definitely worth it if you have a big downside risk. So if you are investing 50 to 70% of the capital that you own, or taking out business loans on top of that, then it's a very good idea to think about how things are going to play out in the next couple of years, and spend at least like 3-4 weeks, maybe even a month or two. I don't really believe in like super structured business plans the way that banks request it. If you request a loan from a bank, they will ask for like projected cash flow and like the rate at which you expect to grow. These are good metrics to have, but I think even more general things of what portion of my income at the very most can I dedicate to staff salaries and to rent and to unexpected costs? And then try to calculate, well, what do I expect my salaries to be like, and what is my rent like? And then from those numbers, you see what kind of revenue you need to have in order for the business to work in the shape that you see it. And then from that number, you can think, well, is it realistic to get to that level of revenue, and how do I get there? So I think rather than just filling in boxes, if you download a template of a business plan, it's good to think through it from different angles, from a point of view of costs, from a point of view of growth, from a point of view of different crises that can happen. If you go a step deeper, you can think about like what kind of catalysts will make your business more successful, less successful. For example, we're working with high net worth individuals, in which case if there is an increase in the higher tax bracket in the UK, we are really heavily punished from that because a lot of people just leave the country. They don't want to pay so much tax, and then we lose like 20% of the market because of that. But if there's a recession, we really don't feel it all that much because people that have a lot of money don't feel it so much. So neither will we. So it's good to think about these things when doing a business plan. If you don't have a big downside, I think then working it out as you go is a better approach. So it all depends on your risk tolerance and how much like you want. A business plan is just a safety net.
Yeah. I think I find that with business plans, a lot of people, like you said, you can work it out as you go. And I think that is a good strategy to an extent. I don't think everything should be planned out, but I do believe that if you go into something without planning, you're at a massive disadvantage. Like I always love that classic quote, which is like, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, sort of thing, because I do believe that. I believe that if you don't know where you're going, how are you ever going to get to your destination? Like it's just kind of crazy that people do this. But at the same time, if you're meticulously planning for every possible thing that could happen, then you're not going to spend any time actually doing the thing. And I think that's the problem. So you need a balance, like always. But I think that it's also a lot easier, because I found that if I spend 10 minutes planning anything at all, then you're actually saving loads of time later, because you actually have already gone through those scenarios. So it's just super easy to be able to act on them. And I think, like you said, from a position perspective, in terms of performance, you know where you're going. Like at the end of a month or end of a quarter, if you've got X amount of money in the bank, you know whether that's on target or not. And you could see every little element where things are going. And I think that one of the biggest things I see in entrepreneurs is that they don't look at the numbers. Like they don't go back and actually analyze them month upon month, or at least quarterly, and see what's going, the projections, and understand that. Like you said, you gotta know the numbers, or understand the numbers, or love the numbers.
Very much.
Did you work with other people on this? And what would be your recommendation for how often would people look at the numbers and go through that? Would you hire experts for this? Is that worth the investment to do that?
I never hired I never hired experts to do something like this, but I don't necessarily think it's a bad idea to do that. I like numbers. I like what you said about being in love with the numbers. I'm definitely on that side of personality. And also maybe I have a survivor's bias, right? The way that I did it worked for me, but if another 99 copies of me did it, maybe it would not have worked out. So it's very hard to give these kinds of suggestions with confidence without proving the concept multiple times and knowing others that did it. I think two very important things to really pay attention to is seasonality. With most businesses, there is some kind of seasonality. Unless you are a Starbucks at a train station, you will have times when you have more work and less work. And plan ahead of seasonality. We have, for example, Christmas, when everybody wants to buy gifts. We try to make it so that staff don't go on holidays during Christmas, because everybody wants to go get a massage or buy a gift. But August, when everybody else is on holiday, we push our staff to say, well, we would really appreciate it if right now you take the time to go and take some extra days off, and so on. So from rota structuring to how much attention you're giving to marketing. Like, again, similar example, if you invest into a billboard and you only can afford it for 2 months in a year, do it at the time of the year when you have most people that would be interested in what you're doing. So seasonality is the first one. And the other one is knowing your customer. And when I say know your customer is, of course, imagining who you're selling it to, but also how you're going to sell it to them. I think the second part is sometimes neglected. If a restaurant opens and they position themselves as like a high-end cuisine for people that are into art because of how I don't know, they have an artistic twist. Maybe they identify that these people exist in the market, but they don't have a good strategy of how to get to them. That's a good thing to also think through and work. So, of course, these are very broad terms, but I think they require a person to sit down and to think about them for a couple of hours, and then good decisions will start coming in.
Okay, so on the seasonality things, I think, like I said, all businesses pretty much do have seasonality. Even I was thinking about the Starbucks and the train station. I mean, they probably still do as well, because of the fact that people are, like I said, at different times at different places. I think that, how would you, for example, organise cash flow for seasonality? Because I think that's a lot of things people understand. Some businesses are in the places where they don't even know their busy seasons, which is the first place they should start. Like, look at the numbers. But secondly, once you identify that, you know, you often get more money in March, for example, and quieter in October, let's just say, for example, how would you accommodate for that, knowing that you're going to have a dip in a certain time of thing? Like, what would you do? Because I think another thing that I've seen founders do is that they don't appreciate that you have to constantly keep working on the pipeline, and that people just think, oh, I'm doing really well at the moment, we're really busy, so they neglect some of that stuff coming in. And we talked about not putting all your eggs in one basket with customer acquisition, but you still need to do some form of marketing to try and build that up. So how have you managed seasonal, like, cash flow and work?
I love this question, because accounting, it may seem like maybe a boring thing to discuss, but it's also such a big part of the success of any business.
Yeah.
So we have a very, very firm rule that we don't spend money that we don't own. And here's what I mean about money that we don't own. Rent, we pay 3 months in advance. So let's say March 1st, we need to pay 3 months in advance. We won't spend money in February if we haven't, to that date, proportionally made enough money to make that payment on the 1st of March. Just to clarify that, if in March we need to pay, let's say, £10,000, and we have 3 months to make that, if specifically for that bill that is going to come, we haven't made £3,333 by the end of the month, we won't use it. We will only use the money that comes afterwards. And of course, there's a lot of these payments that you can predictably know. So a lot of businesses are leaving it for the last 2 weeks to make the money and make that payment. I think that's very stressful. And I think that is also, you're always running the risk that that's when something will go wrong. That's when your receptionist will get sick. That's when somebody sues you or gets a big refund or anything else. Don't leave it until that plan, in storage, they have a first in, first out, the same thing, but with money. First, cover your bills, then make the expenses. We also have something that we call a pillow, which is about 3 weeks of total expenses that we don't touch. It's in a savings account. It's in making 3% annual, and we never dig into that. That's actually also very good from a point of view of not necessarily a credit score, but if you're inviting employees from another country and you need some kind of a visa and you need to prove any kind of financial capability, banks will actually ask what is the lowest amount of money that you had in your bank, and if you had less than the payment that you need to make to, for example, a foreign employee's salary, they will not give you the visa.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow, lots of interesting things. I really like that. And actually, on that note, because obviously you do have foreign people coming over because you are Balinese Spa.
Yes.
And I wanted to come back full circle round to the start of what we're here for is your spa. And you know, like you said at the beginning, there's different ones out there. There's Thai and everything like that, but Balinese is not very common at all. Like you said, there's maybe one other. You said possibly, but
Yes.
Why did you choose Balinese spa? Like, what made you choose that?
Similar to some, it's a mix of two factors. The first one is I'm personally familiar with Bali. I spent quite a lot of time there. I know a lot of the culture. I just have personal connections there. And like right now we have our own school of massage in Bali. So every single person that works with us here has completed our own school. And about 25 of the people that graduate, the best ones, we like to think, we invite to come and work here in the UK. That also makes the hiring process easier. But how we got to that is, of course, positioning that we like to talk about a lot. If we also worked in Thailand before. And if you open a Thai spa in London, the market will compare you to other Thai spas. And in London and in other countries as well, those are usually quite a lot cheaper. Those are a little bit more basic. For example, there's a spa called Thai Square, and they are just off of Trafalgar Square, and they are pretty excellent. And they position themselves as a Thai massage. So maybe they are one of the closest things that we have to a competitor. But I really think that because they have positioned themselves as a Thai place, it's very hard for them to differentiate from places that charge 60, 70 pounds an hour. They are big and they have great facilities and their quality of massage it's good. It's good. They must have had to put a lot of effort into proving to the customer why their Thai massage costs 40% higher than another one. But if we position ourselves as something that a customer can't compare themselves to, a Moroccan spa, a Balinese spa, an Icelandic spa, we make the bar. And I think that Bali has a certain ring to it, also from a brand point of view. If you go shopping and you see Italian shoes, you suddenly have an expectation for how much that costs. Yeah. Same thing with Balinese massage. It gives a person an initial anchor to how much that could be, what kind of quality they're expecting here.
And like you said, you have a school out in Bali now.
Yes.
So your masseuses are trained in Bali, actually from Bali. Yes. It's as authentic as you can get. And I want to again touch on that because I feel like so many people now are looking for quick different things and all sorts of things to do, but actually all it comes down to is quality, like, you know, doing the right things, having the best people and like training them up and actually having a truly authentic and not the buzzword authentic experience. And I think that's what you've done, right?
Yes, that's what we try to do. The reason we think we need our own school is because apart from the quality of massage, we also need to teach customer service. It's just such a big part of the experience. And if a person comes and smiles and their first impression is that, if people don't use their phones and they don't, like, you know, when you use your phone, like, especially if you're on social media, and then you see a person, for the first, like, 10 seconds, you're kind of, like, getting back into this, like, real world. I think customers can really feel that. Yeah. And we're trying to pass this across to not only like management level, but to every single one of our guests.
Wow. And I guess
sorry, not guests, to every single one of our employees, of course.
Okay, yeah, of course. And I feel like you know, There's like you said, we've talked about, you know, how you guys have positioned yourself as the most luxury or expensive spa in London, but then what would you say in your industry, in like, because a wellness space I think is becoming a bigger thing, like, and luxury wellness space is a little bit different, but there obviously are like brands out there not doing things well. What would you say is some of the biggest pieces of bullshit in your industry that you can't stand, that you want to kind of correct, and what you guys stand for?
The pleasure it is to answer this question, Sabrina. Thank you for asking me this. If you go to any store on Oxford Street or on any other high street, you enter and you say you're looking for a specific product, and you ask them, let's say I'm looking for football shoes, and I ask, do you sell football shoes? And they will tell you, yes, but our selection is very limited. Why don't you cross the road and turn left, and there's an Adidas store there, and they have a very big selection of shoes, of football shoes. Go check them out. And it always amazes me. London is the only place in the world where I see that consistently. It happened when I went to buy football shoes last week. Me and my partner went like into a makeup store. She wanted to buy a product. She asked if that product exists there. And they say, we don't have it, but go into the Battersea Power Station. It's on the second floor. And as a customer, I am, of course, happy. But I just, as a person that runs a business, I just scream inside, why don't you say, well, we don't have that, but why don't you check out this product? If you know what the product is, give the customer an alternative. Don't send them away to a competitor. Why do they do this? I think that's, of course, a small-ish thing, but it's a symptom of a lack of training and a lack of training in customer service. You really need to teach and hold every single one of your employees by hand and walk them through the basics until they're able to do this by themselves. I understand that a lot of people work on minimum wage and they, for the lack of a better word, don't care. But for a business to be successful and to, grow, I think that's an essential thing that is missing in so many places, like at least in 50% of the stores.
Wow.
Customer service.
That's not the answer I was expecting at
Nope.
all. So it's got me thinking, because I'm like, that's true, people do that. And I do find it useful as a customer, but I wonder if it's because A, they're trying to sound helpful, but B, people don't like to sell. Like, I think a lot of people find sales quite icky. So it's that if you're then sort of in a position where potential customers come to you and they want something that you don't quite offer, but you maybe offer something similar, you have now got a job set up that you have to convince them that actually they don't want that product that they came in for, or service that they came in for to speak to you about. They want your product. And so you have to now actually put on your sales, like best sales hat, and convert that customer into a paying customer. And I think most people don't like that. I think it's scary and it's difficult. It's not easy, right? So they think the easiest thing is, just be helpful. It'd be nice and be like, here you go, there's the answer. And actually, in a way, they've done their customer service because they've answered their customer's question. And so they see it like that, right? Yeah. So it's like, maybe that's part of it. But how do you then train your staff to then...
Super easy.
Yeah.
Commissions. You just need to introduce commissions. In fact, London has a very high minimum wage compared to the rest of the world, and that is great. But I think businesses misinterpret that a little bit, and they think, minimum wage is higher than it is in, let's say, the US even. That means we just pay minimum wage and that's it. That's not a good way to structure a business. You need to add an incentive for people to work, unless you have some wholly perfect simply walk through your doors. You need to motivate them. And in a scenario where a person gets even 5% of the sale, suddenly they don't feel so icky about selling that product. If they think, I didn't have a customer for half an hour, now this person walked in and he wants something, I have an opportunity to make £10. Yeah. Why don't I not, do the dirty, sleazy sales thing, but just say, especially with makeup. I'm not an makeup expert, but I think the range is quite excessive of every makeup store. Just offer them to give it a try. No need to be pushy. The same thing with shoes. Same thing with clothing. Same thing with cuisine. If you're looking for commissions, really, really save the game. And it doesn't have to be a big commission. In our spa, we have a 2% commission. That's it. And on some much harder to sell products, we go up to 5%. It's a fantastic way for the employee that thinks in the interest of the business to be remunerated, and it's a fantastic way for a business to grow sales.
Wow.
It's a win-win.
And so you found that actually having a base plus commission sort of structure has actually helped you kind of grow your business and be able to sell more? That's
my way of running a business. Before I moved to the UK, I had every single business structured as at least 50-50. I can't do it here, and I don't want to do it here, but here it's more of 80% base, 20% commission. But the higher that commission aspect is, the better it is for motivation. And there are different ways of structuring it, by the way. Maybe some people will find it helpful. There is also a way where you guarantee a minimum. For example, you say, no matter what happens, you will get £3,000 salary. Yeah. But the structure is 1,500 plus commissions. And if you get to a level where it's more than £3,000 at the end of the month, you get to keep it. If you only get to 2,800, well, the 3,000 is guaranteed anyway. So the person starts working that commission from, like, they essentially get a commission after a certain threshold.
Right.
Psychologically, that's great because you can set the commission really high.
Could be like, and then they could think, actually, they could make 10,000 a month because this commission's unlimited, essentially.
I think managing expectations is also very important. I like to be transparent with how much a person can expect to make. But it's that psychological idea of I can make £25 in the next 5 minutes if I just put effort into it. It's not about skill, it's about effort. And I really think that most things, like 80% of the benefit when it comes to sales, is from putting effort into it versus not putting effort into it. Skills and tactics and things like that they're not the low-hanging fruit. Just get the people that work in your company to be interested into doing what's beneficial for your business from a revenue point of view.
So using your example of the £1,500 plus commission that you said, like, say if you get up to 2,800 or whatever, do you ever have people who are sort of like think, it's a lot of effort to get to the 3,000 and then they just can't be bothered? I guess, or I guess if you get those people, do you immediately know that they're not the right people for the business?
Many different ways you can look at it. I think the nicest thing about such a structure is that it's super easy to track it. At the end of the year, quarter, or any kind of period, you can just have a look at their salaries and see, is anyone getting higher than their threshold? And if most people do, except for this one person, you have just identified the weakest link in your team. Congratulations, that's very important. And then you can do whatever you need to do with that. When it comes to people that don't necessarily try for it, it's hard to say. It depends on their position very much. Of course, there are some people that are very comfortable with the level of income that they're getting, and they don't find the structure motivating. Maybe they don't need the money or something else. I don't necessarily think that it is a deal breaker. It depends why they're not doing it. If they're doing it because they don't care, that's problematic. That no matter what in business you're running, if you have people in the team that don't care about the well-being of the business, it will really drag you down. If a person is not doing it for other reasons, such as maybe they didn't receive enough training, if we're very charitable about it, or they're just they don't understand this commission system. Sometimes, I'm guilty of making very sophisticated salary structures, and then people are saying, I don't actually know what I'm doing. I'll just see how much money at the end of the month I'm getting. Then you can also work on that. But generally speaking, it's pretty good to look at how much you're paying a person and judging their level of contribution through that lens.
Yeah.
And with the other people, you can try to put them in a different position. You can try to give them attention and training. You can monitor them closely. What if they're actually doing something that's harmful for your business? In which case, you need to strike a warning or even fire them or replace them. It's helpful. You can, especially if you're not there every day, you look at the numbers and you identify a weak spot.
Yeah, amazing. Gosh, well, that's been so useful. I feel like I've got loads of gems about economics, pricing, staff benefits, all that sort of stuff, as well as what it's really like running a luxury spa in central London. So where can people find you? Because obviously the name of your spa is Seven Bali Spa, right?
That's right.
And that's near Tottenham Court Road. But I know that you're not a massive social media person. So if people wanted to get in touch with you, how could they find you, and what could they ask you?
I also run a podcast, so if people enjoyed this and want to check it out, it's called The Experts Hangout. I get awesome guests on. Sabrina, you were on just a week or two ago, and that was very informative. We had a really cool conversation about marketing. If people want to get in touch with me, perhaps I could leave a link in the description to how they can reach out and send a message.
Brilliant.
I'm also launching a little newsletter where people can get a little glimpse into the kinds of things that I am researching and thinking about, from social cues of how to bond with people to the difference between themes and goals and other little bits of information that I find out. So if you want to check it out, check that out too.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. It's been great having you on today.
It's a very big pleasure. Thank you for having me.